Hey, what's up, ladies and gentle-tubers? It's eveRide. Last week, I created a video all about the glamour and adventure of riding a dual-sport motorcycle 1,000 miles across southern Utah, then back home via Arizona. And from the comments and messages, people were all kinds of inspired and motivated to take dual-sport adventures of their own. And many people said that it was my best video ever, which made me feel really happy. But this week, it is time to get real. With a bit of a raw take on that whole trip, and I'll tell you why you might not want to take that epic dual sport adventure after all. Like anything, there are two sides of the coin, and it's time to take the frosting off and be brutally honest and raw about traveling via dual sport. Now, you're going to want to either leave this video right now or stick around until the very end, because otherwise you might hate my guts. But during the entirety of the trip, I stopped to take 15 unique pictures for my Instagram account. That means that over 3 days and 1,000 miles through what could be one of the most scenic rides in the Western Hemisphere, I only stopped 15 times to shoot a picture. So needless to say, there was a lot of boring stretches of pavement. Packing stuff is always a chore, and as I was leaving the driveway, I very clumsily dropped the bike and pulled a muscle in my wrist while picking it back up, and that made shifting and operating the button on my camera an absolutely agonizing experience. On the way to Moab, it was roasting hot in St. George, only to get freezing cold up at altitude. Cagers were slowing down at every turn. There was snow and ice, and there was this brutal wind and this whipping rain, and all the mountain colors were still dead because it's too early in the season apparently. And leaving my family is the last thing that I really want to do, and my son tends to flip out when I leave, and I tend to flip out. I miss them like crazy, especially when my wife sends me videos like this one. It was 10 grueling hours in a saddle that was made for dirt biking and not for touring. When I arrived that night, I was really cold and tired and hungry and sore, and I just wanted to sleep. And camping, setting up camp was the absolute last thing that I wanted to do. So that night, rest didn't happen. I was still cold and sore and tired, but I still couldn't sleep that night. And the next day's riding was scenic, but it was over far too quickly when a torrent blasted into Moab, and it basically stranded us under a hotel's check-in shelter. And that was after I had lost my cell phone with all of my pictures on it. And after hours of searching, we did finally find it, but not before getting caught in that massive downpour. And the trip home was kind of no different. A miscalculation meant that I ran out of gas 10 miles from the nearest gas station.
That was a critical mistake. Huge mistake. What would you do if you saw somebody pushing their motorcycle up a hill? Would you stop? I mean, really? Really? Big mistake to get to fill up. Huge mistake.
And after an hour of flagging down passerbyers, I basically had to hitchhike into town, which meant leaving my bike and thousands of dollars worth of gear at the side of the road. And then I had to hitchhike back to the bike after getting robbed $15 for a 1-gallon container. The rest of the trip home was just more of the same. It was brutally cold at the altitude, it was searing heat and whipping rain and a headwind the entire way, and just legendary soreness. And after getting back home, my tires were toast, my timing chain seemed just about spent, and even a week later, I'm still just reeling from all the soreness. Now that is utter garbage that I just spewed at you. That's one way that you can look at an adventure. The truth of the matter is that it was all true, but not really, because any adventure is just a matter of perspective. I stopped to take only 15 unique pictures because I'm kind of selfish. I could have taken 1,000 pictures, but I wanted to enjoy much of it for myself and just keep riding, kind of alone in the moment. And I wanted to leave many of the greatest parts of the journey for my viewers, for you guys to discover if you choose to take this ride for yourself. So I didn't really want to spoil it. And the pictures and the videos, they don't even do it justice anyway. And while there are some boring stretches, those are perfect moments for self-reflection and kind of in my case, awful karaoke to the tunes coming through the Santa headset. So, I talked about packing and leaving my family and being hot, being cold, being uncomfortable. And as I've explained in videos past, those are the contrasts that make the good times in our lives that much sweeter. And when fellow motorists were too slow on the way there, that just meant I had more time to enjoy the ride. And now 10 hours in the saddle was kind of tough, but I proved that I could do it to myself. I proved that my little DRZ could do it, and that in the back of my mind I heard that little voice reaffirm, hey, I can do this, I can do hard things. And the setup that I used, the sheepskin and the seat and everything that I'd put my faith in, they worked really well for 10 hours in the saddle. And I was sore that night, and it was hard to get some sleep, but that was more from meeting new friends and laughing around a campfire than, fatigue or soreness. And sure, while my centimeters thick air mattress is no memory foam bed next to my beautiful wife, my restlessness was more from excitement for the next day and not discomfort. And the next day didn't disappoint. Riding with my new friends was a blast. And while I did lose my phone, hunting it down provided a fantastic excuse to keep riding in spite of the impending storm, and riding back to Moab in the torrent was an adventure in and of itself, and a pleasant and nice contrast to the heat of the day. And stopping under that hotel awning after the storm was just another opportunity to get to know the guys and laugh over the adventure that we'd share. The trip home did feel longer. There was less to see on the route to Monument Valley, but it was still gorgeous in its own way. The rain and the wind were really brutal, but once again it was a good test of me and my equipment and my gear and all that stuff. And in my eagerness to beat the rain due to the forecast, I did forget to fill up when I left Moab, so I ran out of fuel just 10 miles from the next town called Monticello. And it's true that nobody stopped when I tried flagging them down, but in the moment that I decided to press forward and not give up and walk the bike 10 miles to Monticello, that's when I got picked up and I got to meet more new friends to help me on my way. They were art students from Wyoming, and they gave me a ride to town, and we shared that part of our adventure together, and it was awesome. They were really cool people. And then as soon as I got into town, a really kind guy gave me a ride back to the bike. And on our return trip, I learned that he was a fellow dual sport rider, so we talked KTM and dual sport the whole way back to the bike. So faith in my gas capacity and trip planning chops was a bit shaken, but my faith in humanity was restored. Now my bike is now a little worse for wear, as am I. I still am sore. But that means I have a good excuse to ask my wife for back rubs, and a great excuse to spend a little bit more money on the DRZ to get it back into tip-top shape. And that is the honest truth of this adventure. Not everything was perfect. There was soreness and tiredness and homesickness, even just over the 3 days. But it was an adventure, and I'm glad to be back home. But just like any trip, I wouldn't have missed it for the world. And it's a little bit like life. It's all about a matter of perspective. So thanks for watching, ladies and gentle tubers. Much love. eveRide out.